No bombs allowed.
Easy to forget that life's a game, but shit, I did it too. Know we all to blame, but it's never been the same since I learned the rules, since I got the tools and I dropped the fools. I saw the snakes and fakes and the hate that they make, the pain that they take. I just pray they awake. We may play the same game, but we do by different rules. Got a few I choose to follow, but my motto is the truth. Through the movement, commandments, solutions to the madness. My motive is decoding life's laws like mathematics. Found the blueprint schematic, showed me flow is automatic. Spit romantic semantics and then get back at it. Gotta have it. That's the first thing I found out. Why drop the clowns out and show them?
Hey y'all, we are back here at No Bombs Allowed. We are sitting here with Leonid Rarov, as usual, chatting this time about the Ukraine potential invasion by Russia. We had an episode just prior to this that we talked about the basic ideas, talked about Leo's time in Ukraine recently that he went to just in the summer of 2021. Now we're going to be doing a bit more of a deep dive, and me and Tyler have a few questions for him, just to kind of figure out, like, as an American, what does he think about the things that I'm thinking about? Because you gave us your Ukrainian perspective.
Yes, there's so much more that I would like to say, definitely, but it would take too long.
Yeah, so I want to just kind of guide it in a couple directions that for me, like, so my perspective was this. I remember being in Prague in 2015, I believe, during the invasion of Crimea. And all of Europe was kind of tweaking out, kind of having a fit about that. So I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about exactly what the situation was in 2014 with the occupation and absorption of Crimea by Russia. So we talked about it a little bit in the prior episode, but the idea that Crimea is a sore spot in the Russian Empire's history because of a complication with the British invasion of Sevastopol. Can you just do a basic history of that for the listeners who might not know? Because I'm still trying to get my head around it. Just how Crimea ended up being Ukrainian.
I've been to Sevastopol. I've been to a museum where they have this great display about the British invasion. I don't know the most about the history of it. Just brief.
Yeah, but it was some World War I shit, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and the British got involved between, I don't know a little bit more. I guess that's so funny, Leo. Between the two of us, we make almost a full Russian educated person. I think it was a World War I thing between the Turkish or the Ottoman Empire and the Russian Empire during World War I, because that was the major port on the Black Sea. Somehow the British got involved, though. I don't know.
Yes, there was a lot of mess over Crimea, and still continues to be.
Still continues to be, but how did it end up Ukrainian after the Soviet Union?
I think it ended up Ukrainian because it was connected to Ukraine, and so it was just logical and reasonable to split it off that way, and Ukraine, I believe, basically just claimed it. Even though when they did become independent, Russia continued to have their fleet there and continued to pay
it's
for
the seat of control of the entire Black Sea from the naval base.
Yeah, so it became Ukrainian, but it was never really Ukrainian. It was always kind of part of Russia because Russia had their, military fleet there that they can just take it at any point. But yeah, I am not exactly sure.
Yeah, so that's kind of when I first got acquainted with hearing horrors of the Eastern Ukrainian Russian conflict. Then also the other perspective I would like, just to get the very foundation set here, the 2014 referendum in, what was it, Donbas?
Yes.
In the Donbas region.
I think this is an opinion, but things have gotten so bad with Ukraine's economy destabilizing, people just got fed up with it, and since Ukraine split off from the Soviet Union, the eastern part, which is primarily Russian population, in 2014 they finally decided that enough is enough, and we want to be part of Russia because Ukraine is not offering us anything good. Things have been getting worse and worse, and things in Russia are getting better, and Russia can offer us a better deal.
People joke about the United States' federal government not having enough support. Imagine the Ukrainian federal government trying to support.
Yes, everything disappeared. There was nothing. There was nothing for people. The population has decreased dramatically since the 90s. Millions of people have moved out. They're scattered throughout the world. Many people work overseas to support their families. Much of the Ukrainian economy is kind of like the Mexican economy. It's reliant on people working overseas to support their families.
Yeah, we were just saying that during the break. That I remember when I first was hanging out with like some kind of grimy Russian guys, like more street guys, and they were joking about overhearing a guy talking in Ukrainian. And he's like, oh, you know what it's like to have Ukrainians in America. They're just like your Mexicans. They'll come in and work for your same job for less money because they just need it so bad. So, yeah, they're the Ukrainians of Russia.
Ukrainians are the Mexicans of Poland or the Mexicans of Russia and whatever other countries they go to around them. It's quite ridiculous. In this case, though, you don't have a difference in skin color or looks specifically. People just look the same, but still, for example, Ukrainians that are working in Poland, they're yet looked down on. They're
Totally.
They're treated as servants, and the Polacks don't really care for them all that much.
So for the referendum in Donbas, you think that is legitimate that the people, because there's been a lot of claims that Russia kind of rigged the referendum and like used it as justification to invade the region. Would you say that you think the people, maybe Russia rigged it a little bit, but you think the people genuinely there want to be Russian and they want it to join Russia? I would agree.
100%.
Yeah.
They wanted to join Russia. They wanted to be part of Russia, or they simply probably would like the opportunity to simply jump the border and move to Russia.
Wow.
And unfortunately, even if Russia provides enough space for much of the eastern Ukraine to just evacuate and move back into Russia, the Western Ukraine is going to have a problem with it.
Yes.
The Ukrainian government of Kyiv is going to have a problem. And I guess I have to, just to narrow it down, when I'm talking about Ukraine, I'm only talking about Kyiv. When I'm talking about the representation of Ukraine on the world scale, I am only talking about Kyiv and the local government of Kyiv.
Wow.
And Ukraine has never been a unified country. There is really no such thing as a Ukrainian besides people that live in Ukraine and speak Ukrainian, which I speak Russian and Ukrainian. I grew up speaking both languages, but all of a sudden, some groups of people in the West decided to just suppress all Russian and get rid of the languages, force people to only speak Ukrainian and write Ukrainian, and make things inconvenient. You look in the United States, a lot of instructions are in Spanish. Why? Because it's convenient. It's convenient to have a multilingual system because it's better for communication. Why would all of a sudden some group of extremists get political power and start suppressing much of the population of Ukraine into, following some sort of order and completely erasing the history of what the Soviet have done to them? So, yeah, there is no such thing as actual Ukrainian identity. As I was discussing this just briefly with Tyler, you look at countries like Sweden, and it's for Swedes. You look at countries like Norway, that the people there are unified. They have
It's a Norwegian culture.
Yes, they have one culture, one identity. Their traditions are very much the same. Ukraine is much more scattered. So the people that unfortunately ended up, they were moving to Russia when they were moving to Russia, and they speak primarily Russian, but they learned Ukrainian. And they would like the opportunity I think they're just fed up. They've had enough. And unfortunately, I think that even if they tried to just move back, much of the Western Ukraine would still try to keep them from crossing the border into Russia.
Yeah, so that's one thing actually I did want to talk to you about. So you've said this before many times, that Ukraine is predominantly Russian speaking on the whole eastern half, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
That
it's very split up. They're always
from Kiev east, it's mostly Russian speaking.
Yeah, there are always two sides. You look at the political divide, and it's like, there's always the two sides. But in this case, it's just so historically. It just how it happened. My grandpa himself migrated to Nikolaev because he had a better opportunity at receiving a place from the government that he could house and raise a family in.
Okay.
So
and get work. Yeah.
And get work. He bumped up because after the war, everything was destroyed. There was no housing for people. So people were in these long lines. It was communism. People were in really long wait lines. And my grandpa was one of those outgoing dudes that had a really good head on his shoulders, and he got lucky. And he got bumped up the list. So instead of being, 100,000s in the list, he got up to be like, 10,000s and then 5,000s. And then he met some people that had connections, because as with any system, communism, it was a huge bureaucracy system. If you know the people, if you have the right connections, you can get extra things. And
all about connections.
My grandpa just happened to be like rolling with the elites. He was working at a beer factory. He was working at a shipbuilding facility. He was an electrician, a master electrician, and the guy just, as I mentioned, has an amazing brain. So he got bumped up. He got recognized, and also the most fair man that I've known. If he actually was if he had more of a mob mentality, he would have gone so much further. But he was too fair of a guy.
The Soviets will do that to you.
Yes.
Wow. So so Nikolaev is like very Russian. I'm still.
Yeah, Nikolaev is primarily Russian. In fact, it was so exclusive in the 70s and 80s that it was completely cut off from the rest of the country. Like when my grandpa had to leave the city, he had to get orders and get approved because of his job and the secrets that supposedly he was exposed to when he was working at a shipbuilding industry. So he had to sign like formal documents where he was traveling, how long he was gone, and sign a disclosure agreement that he wasn't going to talk about anything or expose anything. So Nikolaev actually was, and it's still a very beautiful city, even though it's become decrepit from lack of maintenance since the 90s because people were stealing things.
I remember you talking about like in the U.S. when a city's decrepit, it's still intact. In Ukraine, people have stolen all the scrap metal from the goddamn playgrounds.
Yeah, copper on the walls is gone. The playgrounds metal is gone. Anything you could turn in for some liquor money.
Dear God.
But Ukraine, when my mom was growing up, when she had a perfect childhood. She had like everything provided for her. Education was free. Jobs, you didn't have to worry about jobs. They didn't pay you shit, but damn, they offered a ton of them. I mean, they just put you in somewhere. You fit. You fit. You're there. Homelessness was illegal, so you didn't have people on the streets. They had mental institutions. It was a perfect society. It was built to be like a perfect little utopia world. So,
Ty, do you have any questions? You said you had a couple coming in.
Yeah, but mine are kind of later questions, I think, because we
hit
haven't
it up,
really
hit it
like okay. So, I guess like one of my first questions is like, so you've been kind of talking about how the eastern border, or like kind of like the eastern part is a little more Russian, and even like in other parts. So hypothetically, like, and I'm pretty sure none of us actually think Russia. Well, I don't know. Do you think that like if this is a thing that's going to happen, a lot of people are going to be a little more okay with it than kind of like the Western, like specifically like the U.S. has put it like.
Meaning like if it would happen like Crimea, where the West thinks that it's like a horrible invasion,
but
like and the citizens are happy.
Right.
Yeah, actually, that's actually something that I was going to ask Leo coming up here. So I'm glad that you asked that, because I asked Leo before, like a week or so ago, what he thought about it. And he said that for the people of these regions, the best thing for them would be to join Russia. But that would not be the best thing for Ukraine. So right. it's a conflict between what's best for the people of those regions and the Ukrainian people.
I'm talking more like specifically like, so like that kind of does answer my question, but more specifically towards the people, less towards the Ukrainian government.
So you mean if Russia were to invade?
Yeah.
if the war were actually to happen, are you curious if anybody like other countries would care and how much?
I mean, the West would care. I know that much. I was just like, kind of more like, so if an invasion did happen, so a lot of the people, there wouldn't be as much of like a uprising against Russia. It'd be more like, hey, this is great. Like now we can join Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
like
it Russia has already invaded in 2014, and they still have their operatives. That's a secret. It's not really a secret. I mean, but they're there. I mean, Russia's already there. They've been in Ukraine for quite some time now. They're not going to invade Ukraine officially, I don't think. But if they were to go into the east side officially and bring in troops, nobody in the eastern Ukraine would resist.
okay.
There would be no uprising against it besides the people that they have building up now from the west, the whole Hollywood thing.
Yeah.
So no.
Okay.
Russians can literally right now just walk across the border and they would be welcomed.
But Kiev would lose its shit.
Oh yeah, they would lose their shit. But then, if I also want to lead into would the world care? And I think like no, I think that I read this article recently about when a president of the United States hears about some conflict and how a typical president would go about thinking over. You know, you have conflicts in Israel, you've got conflicts in Afghanistan, there's ongoing conflicts in different African countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo. You got conflicts going on in Burma, you got Syria, you had Libya. You know, it's just little explosions worldwide. And what is it when a United States president that hears about all this ongoing thing, when they think like, you know, say they hear about, Syria just got their shit fucked, big time. A typical president is like of the United States is going to be like, well, how is the United States looking? How's our economy?
Yeah, how does it affect us?
Yeah, how does it affect us? You know.
Well, and that's what Biden did. He figured he's playing this whole character of like we have to be the law bringer of the world. So he's threatening these sanctions. What do you think about the sanctions, Leo? Like he's threatening, like Tyler and I just read an article on these sanctions he's threatening. Crazy shit. Like it would be very intense. Like if Russia invades Ukraine, he will put enough economic sanctions on the banks and the financial industry to basically crash their stock market and inflate their currency to the point where it's going to affect all of the citizens of Russia, not just the elites.
I think that they are laughable because Russia is not going to invade Ukraine. They're there to protect their citizens. And I will make this point clear from what I feel very personally. The reason that the whole thing is personal to me is I love it here in the United States. I am a United States citizen. I'm an American. I love it here. I wouldn't be here if Ukraine got their shit together in the 90s. I wouldn't be here. I would have gotten to grow up in a country that I've been in my whole life. I mean, I'm not bitter. I'm not complaining. I'm very happy that I have this experience and I speak multiple languages and stuff. And there are no regrets about how my life turned out, but this is my personal connection to it, is I simply just wouldn't be here. I would be, you know, probably living pretty good in Ukraine right now. But the camaraderie, that brotherlyhood that Russians have developed in World War II, that is very, like, deep internally. That is like the whole like soul and heart of that Russian mentality. That, I mean, they're rough people, but they are welcoming. You know, they'll welcome you into your home with with open arms. They're not like they're very personable. They are just loving, like, warm people, especially to other Russians. That identity of what a Russian is has become very secured after World War II. after you had to put up
Yeah.
your sons, your daughters, your women, everybody was fighting in that war. So that bond that has formed is strong. And the West, which they don't talk about a lot, has joined the Nazi Party during the war because they hated Russians so much. They started selling out their own neighbors and family who were, Jewish or whatever ancestry. They had Nazi militias. They put a monument up recently to Bandera. Bandera is one of the leaders of the Nazi Party of Ukraine. It's like putting up a
What?
statue of Hitler. Yeah, Western Ukraine. You know how in the United States here they recently took down the statue of Lee, General
Yeah.
Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they put up not just the statue of Lee, that would be soft. They put up a freaking statue of literally Hitler or one of the other Mussolini or name any other horrible dictator, and that's what Western Ukraine is back to.
Wait a minute. I assume that you're saying that Western Ukraine sold out its Jews to the Nazis then.
Yes.
Versus Russia didn't really do that, did they?
No.
Yeah, like they held strong and they were willing to die rather than give up their own people. I mean, they'd murder them in Gulag, but that's a separate thing.
Yes.
But they wouldn't give them up to the Nazis. But Western Ukraine did.
They
weren't.
did.
They were part of that Western ideology. I remember the first time I found out that some of my ancestors are from not Croatia but Slovenia, but it's a similar ancestry. I remember when I found out that the reason why Serbia really doesn't like Croatia is because Croatia sided with the West during World War II and they sold out their Jews. Like, they were Nazi cooperators.
Yeah.
Where Serbia was not so down with that, and Russia was not so down with that. The Eastern Bloc, like the Far East, was not down. But that's interesting to hear that Western Ukraine was more along like the Western mentality of like sell out the Jews for a little bit of loving from Germany.
Exactly like that. They literally, there are pictures from that era that they're welcoming the Germans with bread and salt because they could finally stick it to those evil Russians, which Russians were. I mean,
Yeah,
Russians
stick it to
were,
the Russians.
At that point,
Terrible.
At that point
Ivan
in
the
time,
Terrible.
yeah, at that point in time, Russians were just as bad, if not worse, than the Nazis to the Ukrainian people of the West. So, but to redeem the Ukrainian people of the West, I'm going to say that eventually the Nazi treatment got so bad that they were like, oh, this got too far. What the fuck, you guys? We really have gone too far. So yeah, eventually they were like, okay, how do we get these guys out? So then when the Soviets, the Red Army took over, that's where the expression of Наши люди, our people, have returned to rescue us from the Nazis. So eventually they accepted the Russians back,
wow.
and they were like, finally, our people are back. And
Oh, this sounds like an abusive relationship where you go off and you try to find a relationship that's better and you find one that's way worse. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm coming back forever, baby. Okay,
Yeah.
Russia.
So yeah, they were like,
Russia and Ukraine forever.
they're like, now we're gonna stick it to those Nazis, and we're really gonna stick it to the Nazis now. But somehow now you recently in the city, my grandpa told me this when I visited. They had a Nazi march in Kiev. And it was like one of those where they had the cops protecting them because a lot
Really?
of the World War II veterans showed up.
Okay.
And they were literally going to tear these people apart. I mean, so they had a lot of security, and they had a full-on like Nazi parade in the center of the Kiev capital that was basically a group that was expressing Nazi type of values that was gathering against Russians.
Wow.
So pretty fucked up.
Wait, also against Russians?
Yeah. No, these Nazis were against Russians.
Okay, so
They
I didn't want to quite make this divide, but that seems pretty significant where that sounds like Western Ukraine was much more Nazi sympathizing to this day and therefore doesn't like the East, which is like holding the line.
Yeah.
Like you just said, they developed that identity of the people that held off the onslaught of World War II. And so that sounds
Yes.
like Western Ukraine isn't included in that.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's the remnants of the Western Ukraine that
Yeah.
some of those people that were part of the Nazi parties and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not like your anti-Semitic. They're not like your like the white supremacist type. They're not really like against
So they're
like,
just fascists.
Jews.
They're just fascists.
They're fascists that like hate Russians. So it's really weird.
Wow. Sounds like now's a popular time to be that, though.
Yeah,
Like populism's growing all over Europe.
but now now I think that most people will say that they are fascists is because it was gets the media.
It's a buzzword, yeah.
Yeah,
Fuck,
it's a-
I don't
it's a
mean
buzzword.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I
so,
mean more that like this is really interesting because what Tyler and I were just talking about, something Tyler was asking me is like, does this sound like Ukraine's just going to kind of get ripped in half because they're like allying with the West, like they're trying to ally with NATO and the EU, but Russia, what if Russia just kind of like pulls every part of them that doesn't want that back in? I don't know, like it.
Well, and to kind of, so this kind of jumps back a little bit, but to tie into that point, I think that's why like on a diplomacy point only, I think that's why the U.S. cares so much, because they want someone from the East joining NATO, because that's just one less nation that
Totally.
Russia kind of like,
One more ally.
right, exactly, so close to them. I think so. I think it's less like
And
that.
especially now that we're not really on good terms with Russia.
Yeah, especially now. So I think it's less to do with the fact that like the U.S. government is like, hey, you can't be bullying other people. It's more like, hey, we can't lose this like this asset.
meanwhile, where is Russia involved? You don't see Russia in Mexico or like much
Yeah.
South
No,
America.
exactly.
they left Cuba alone, but United States is just like in these random countries and telling the other countries not to bully.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we also have like a specific vested interest, and this is the next topic I wanted to jump into. We got to talk about Trump. Like, let's get real about this. So
Yeah.
there were a couple of things.
Well, hang on.
Oh yeah, please.
I do have to conclude my point.
Oh yeah, sorry, please.
Ultimately, if it comes down to it, which it won't, but that kind of camaraderie that has developed after World War II is Russians will not see other Russians get bullied. So if Ukraine does become aggressive to the ethnic Russians, which are Ukrainians, if Ukrainians become aggressive to Ukrainians, the Russian Ukrainians,
This is sounding more and more like Mexicans.
right, then the Russians from Russia, no man, Russians are not going to stand for it, and they will get things under control, and nobody's going to care about it because it's Russia's business, and they're going to be left alone to do
Well,
so.
because that's true. There is truth to that Ukrainians are bullying ethnic Russians.
Well, their own citizens. It's stupid.
But if they're pro-Russian, they say that's so anti-Ukraine that you're against the state. That's constantly happening. They're saying if you're pro-Russian, then you don't support Ukraine, and there's a lot of like
Yeah,
discrimination, I guess.
yeah, it's exactly that. It's just a kind of that resentment. But no, Russia is going to control the situation. There's nobody. There's not anything that anybody is going to do about it because Russia has a lot of nuclear arsenal, and that's the end of story. And as excited that as anyone wants to make it, or if people want to get on the news, as Avery likes to say, one of his expressions, but I'll change it up a little bit. Russians do not fuck around.
I got
Yeah.
one more question, quick.
Yeah.
Before we jump to the
Hit
Trump
me,
stuff.
yeah.
So I was reading another article that the Russian forces are like piling up in the east, in what was it?
In Belarus.
Belarus.
Like, and they're along the northern border,
yeah.
like just north of Kiev.
Yep. And the article was saying that Ukrainian forces are so tied up with rebel groups that like they don't have enough people to
Man, the northern border.
man the northern border.
Yeah.
Are these like rebel groups? Are they mostly like eastern Ukraine? I don't know if you know anything about this or not.
Yeah, they're all Eastern Ukraine.
They're all the rebel groups are just okay.
Yeah. That's
I kind of figured that. but-
Dissenters, like people, Leo always said, like people left over from the war that still wanted to fight, so they wanted to take out their anger on Russia
Yeah.
or take out their anger on Ukraine. You can say the same thing for both sides. Just these weird kind of militias that are just angry and like want to punish.
yeah. So yeah, you have the militias that are in the east and the militias in the west.
Yeah.
Yep, but essentially, just people that are fighting for their rights.
Yeah.
I know my rights.
It's so funny. And the more Leo tells me about Ukrainian people and kind of the people he grew up around, the more it sounds like just hicks, like American hicks.
Yeah.
American like trailer trash.
Well,
like,
I mean,
total
like,
fucking hicks.
It is. It is. It's a bunch of Seluki.
Yeah, dude, it's a bunch of like
villagers.
old, like semi-scraggly bearded dudes in wife beaters drinking fucking beer in a
Moonshine.
tavern midday.
Well, if the U.S.
or
government
in a hole in the ground, you know.
Oh my god. Jesus Christ.
With a 50-year-old AK.
With a 50, you gotta, if you're Ukrainian, Russian, Belarusian, any Eastern European, you gotta have your 50-year-old AK.
I mean, if America's government was kind of like that, that'd be like the South.
It is very much like it's like a whole country of the South.
Yeah.
But Kiev is kind of like the North.
Yeah.
Like East Coast.
Yeah. All this hype is, I think, is posturing. I mean,
think so too.
There's probably like a 2% chance that I'll be wrong, and we'll see in the next 5 years. But I think all this, like, oh, we're gonna build up some boys on the front lines, you know. I think it's mainly hype, and the media is loving it, and everybody's covering it.
Because that's what I was hearing, where Tyler was just talking about how the newest development is that Russia has put troops into Belarus, the northern border, and are doing military exercises with like artillery, tanks, jet fighters right along the northern border, like right along the shortest path to Kiev, like right around Chernobyl, you know, like right north of Kiev, and it's doing military exercises along the border with dank ass military.
Yep.
So that's where that does look like posturing, but that's also like that's letting Ukraine know that if they really wanted to take the capital, it would have been done long ago.
Oh yeah, and there is not much that the European Union can do about it. In fact, the only suppressor would be United States. But no one's going to do anything about it. And you hear about when like Russia flies their jets too close to some American Navy vessels or something like that, or occasional, you know, what you going to do about it, bitch?
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, there's
between
just
the U.S. and Russia.
It's all posturing.
All of it.
Because we know that the ultimate end is the end. So there's not going to be an initiation of conflict unless we want to destroy the world.
Yeah, like we've reached the point of like, oh, so it's going to be nuclear. So I guess we're friends then.
Yeah.
It's almost like siblings. It's like a step sibling where it's like, well, it looks like we're never going to be free of each other. I don't really like you, and I don't really like the reason that we're in this situation, but it looks like we're going to be spending a lot of time together. So that's where we get into Trump right there, because that's what I wanted to talk about, where Biden is making a big show. And if, like, my perspective, I agree very much, though, that it's so much theatrics. And Biden is making a big fucking point that he will not stand for Russia's pushing. And I think a big reason of that is because Trump was so pro-Russia and was so dirty involved with Putin and like in bed with him that Biden's trying to make a point where it's like, I'm so not Trump. Because that was like very much like what he got elected on. I'm not Trump, that type of thing. Like, so he's making a big point to not stand for it like Trump did. So my question for you, Leo, here's my conspiracy theories coming out. We knew that back in like 2017, 2018, Putin and Trump were having talks, and there was so much like media bullshit about like, oh, Trump is involved with Putin.
Oh, Trump loved him.
Oh, they were best buds.
He respected the fuck out of the guy, and he wanted to be him, and he knew that in this country as a president, he could never be like Putin.
Exactly. But they definitely did have some talks about things that we're not really clued into. Do you ever want, like, me and Tyler were speculating earlier today that those were some big talks, and Trump probably planned on having a second term. Do you wonder if there was ever any point that Putin was like, Trump, what do you think about American affairs in the Ukraine? What would you think if in the next 8 years in your presidency, you would kind of loosen up on giving pushback on the Ukraine? And Trump was like, yeah, for those loans you gave me a while ago or whatever dirty business we have, I can cut you a deal on that if you do this for me. And I don't know, what do you think about that? Like, because we knew there was some weird collusion. Do you think that there was any, like with the Russians hacking the election, they really, really had an interest in having Trump in office? Or am I just sounding totally off base in conspiracy theory?
I think that it doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, because let's be clear,
Um,
like if Trump was in office right now, he wouldn't be giving pushback on Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
This would be going off without a hitch.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think that it doesn't necessarily matter who the president is. But if Trump were in office still, we would just have no coverage. So things would go as they are. There would just not be this whole coverage.
Oh wow, there wouldn't be the charade of trying to resist.
There might not be this whole like cover, and Russia would probably be allowed more rights to do whatever they want.
But I mean, Biden's threatening major sanctions that would eventually, like, it would basically like destroy the stock market for a time of Russia.
But ultimately, I don't think it matters because president doesn't have powers. What a president is a symbol. So what a president says is something that people carry along, but it's not necessarily anything that's going to happen. So, it's kind of like, I like Arnold Schwarzenegger and I like watching Terminator. I'll be back. It sounds fucking cool. I'm down with it, but it's probably not what's happening, and it's about as much power as the United States president has. Is they're just a poster figure, really. I mean, if you're looking at Putin, though, now that's some fucking real power.
Yeah, so that's it. But yeah, I was talking about Trump. So you make a good point that, yeah, that's true. That the American president, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I for the first time I was able to vote in like 2016 and stuff, and then once I was able to do that, I kind of got like more curious and like involved in the political parties of America. But now I'm just so laid back and just totally backed off that whole notion that the people that we vote for like are actually gonna be doing things for us or have like a whole lot of power, because they don't. And that's the greatest thing about America, and I think why things work so well is because you have local government. You have actual like local people. You have like I have a condo association, and they look over what is going on specifically in that small like region, just that square footage of whatever 2 acres where the condos are, and they specifically give a fuck about what goes on there and what's going on with the infrastructure and the utilities, and they take care of it. And the people that are living there get the option to get involved and get to choose where their money is going. There are yearly meetings that you go to. You talk to the actual people that are involved in that. So, whoever the fucking poster child is on the main news, they're just a cover. It's like looking at a magazine cover. It's like, ooh, I know that.
Oh, that's Man of the Year.
Yeah, it's familiar. It's like, oh, it's the Man of the Year. But, it's like fucking watching the presidential debates is probably the same thing as watching, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That's what America is, we gotta feed you some shit, even though, like, literally, you will learn nothing from this. I'd love to. I mean, I think that the presidents were a little bit more serious back maybe when I was, like, on those black and white.
Yeah, back in the fucking, like, powdered wig type of days.
Yeah, when things were, like, when shit was hitting the fan, like the, what was it, Roosevelt during World War II? When the wars were happening, when there was serious crisis, even like this pandemic crisis thing, it's like it's so like fabricated and so like just not the real thing,
True.
It's like
it's like the world ending in our dreams, but like so fantasy like that it's not
exactly.
even like the total actual world collapse.
Yeah.
But people are treating it that way.
Exactly. It's like, oh my god, let's just mobilize. And we got people mobilizing. They don't know what they're mobilizing against.
Yeah, they're like, all right, guys, we're all mobilized. Where are we going? And everybody's like, wait, what?
What are we going to do?
Who said that? Where'd he go? All right, I got one last question for you then, just on this topic of like whatever election shenanigans, Russia meddling in the U.S. and shit. Well, one thing actually before I get to that. So the thing that Russia's kind of been threatening in response to sanctions is like if sanctions were put on Russia, they would like hack us again or like cut off access to natural gas, which would be a big deal because America's already having gas prices going up. So I wanted to ask Leo, because we previously covered an episode on the Russian hacks, do you think that there's anything that the Russian hacks during the Trump presidency, like election time, that could have had to do with this? Or do you think that's a totally separate thing? You said last time that it's probably like a new augment to a tractor wheel that helps them till their soil a lot quicker, and nothing that we really need to be all up in arms about that they actually hacked our government for. But do you think there's any relation to the Russian hack in this? You don't think it's some master plan for Russia to invade the Ukraine? You think it's just posturing?
The whole invasion thing, I think, is posturing. Tyler, what do you think about like countries hacking each other?
I mean, it happens all the time.
But
Like-
why do you think they do it?
I mean, out of like the most basicness of it, I would say to get technology or like,
Get ahead, man.
yeah, or get some dirt on another country that like maybe again
Get
to get
advantage.
ahead. Yeah,
Or like technology stuff?
yeah,
Yeah, and a lot of times, if some group of college students that are just fucking around, discovering the inner depth of the internet, or just hacking into another country, and that's considered like, oh, we got hacked by Russia or China or India just because it came from that country.
Are you saying we're being racist towards hackers? That like I don't see color when it comes to hackers. Like, yeah, he was living in Russia and he was contracted by the Russian government. But how can we say that the Russian government hacked us?
Right.
That's kind of fair enough. It's like, because nowadays it's like some dude did the hack and he probably sold the information to someone, and they probably sold it to the Russian government.
Yeah. And that brings up the question of the cyber warfare, and I think that it is absolutely happening right now as we speak, and
Totally.
Russia and United States and any other major country that has developed the internet technology. In fact, I'm gonna take a step back here, and I was watching this little documentary about Panama.
Panama, yeah.
Panama, was it? Or no, it was Cuba. Yeah, it was Cuba. So in Cuba, people got really creative because they went really like hardcore communist. They still have these stores where they only have like one type of shoe.
Oh yeah,
or
they
very-
didn't have any Western imports.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of import. They don't have a lot of like options for when it comes to buying stuff. They're out of like various food supplies. Even they just produce rum. That's all they do is they roll awesome tobacco and they produce rum.
Yeah, damn right they do.
But you know how Cuba solved their internet problem and became one of the internetized countries? Hard drives. They started spreading shows on hard drives. So they have a business, these businesses that are huge. They're like your Netflix business, and they drive all around the island and deliver all the recent like shows, big shows and stuff to the parts of the island that will never have internet for however many years. So they're connected by having the people that are, and some speculate that it's people in Florida that are downloading all this recent stuff. So they have these terabyte hard drives
Holy
that
shit.
will install shows. And so they have laptops and stuff, but they don't have internet. So they physically deliver the hard drives to all these different people.
yeah.
Holy
And
shit.
they're catching up with the world and the internet.
Dude, like back in the day when you used to be able to get a fucking CD
Mm-hmm.
and burn it on your computer and then give it to your buddy to burn it on his computer,
Yep.
and then you both had the CD.
And they charge money for that. So like say you want 2 hours of entertainment, and I think on the show it was like 30 cents, which is pretty big money because in Cuba people like have a pensions of like $20 a month.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But ultimately, internet is power. Technology, information is power. It advances societies, countries. It gives ideas to boys like me. When I was 14, that now my brain is so full of ideas that I could potentially overthrow the government if enough people followed me. People don't want you to have that. People don't want you to know that. That's taking advantage.
No, man. Like I remember you talking about being like in Ukraine, but growing up playing the same computer games that me and Tyler did. Or like
Yeah.
I remember being in Russia and meeting some nerdy American guy in his 30s who's going over there for a video game conference because gaming's huge in Russia. Because what do you do when you're in Siberia with nothing? Get a computer.
And how much more was I connected to the world and being able to migrate here and assimilate faster because I had
yeah.
the music, that culture, that information. Any country that can take that advantage, any individual that can take that advantage in terms of hacking, I mean,
Yeah.
say like, maybe not personally us, but people we know have downloaded a lot of stuff
Yeah.
illegally.
People that aren't us,
Allegedly.
yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, like imagine that. Like imagine you're isolated somewhere and don't have
Yeah.
access to go to a movie theater. You can download any movie that's ever been made off the
Yeah,
internet.
or you don't have the
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
allegedly, or you don't have the money and you have that power.
Yeah. It's a
So
different world.
yeah, absolutely. If the wars have changed, they're on a different scale now. There's the information wars, the internet wars. There's space wars now.
Culture fucking
yeah.
wars.
The culture wars. Yeah, exactly. Culture wars.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, we'll have to talk about that. That's a whole
How
episode.
pretentious of humanity. How absolutely opulent of humanity that we get to have culture wars now. We get to look down on people now.
Yeah,
Look how good we have it.
yeah. It's so hard walking around, knowing that I'm just so much better than everybody else.
You gotta wonder though
And
how
they're
many.
just so much worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta wonder how many nations are actually like for top secret things. You gotta wonder how many are just like doing it in like print form now, just because you run the risk.
Oh, wow.
Of
Getting
hacked and having that
Wow, I
leak.
never thought about that.
Yeah.
Going back to analog
Yeah.
because it's not hackable. You'd have to actually break in and rob them.
Right.
Dude, I personally have. This is a big secret, but I personally have a notebook where I write down all my passwords.
That's smart, yeah.
I don't, or like phones and stuff. Anything that I can lose that's important,
Yeah.
that can get erased on the hard drive, I have a hard copy of.
Yeah, shit. That actually makes me think we had huge problems in the earlier part of this season where we were having episodes get corrupted and like unformatted and shit. Wait, sorry.
Yeah.
I meant this is episode 1. But is it though? I know, but that's got me thinking where it's like, what if we like? It'd be cool to have a analog backup of these files
Yeah.
so that if something corrupts, we don't lose episodes.
Right.
But that'll never happen. But yeah, I see how the government could do that when it's really important documents, like as important as no bombs allowed. Man, you kidding me?
Dude,
God,
just
careful
imagine.
with that shit.
Imagine the vaults where they have like some of the secrets, like the Vatican. They have a
Oh,
vault
yeah.
Ooh.
that has like things in hard copies
Yep.
from just history that's been recorded no one has seen. And they're like, we are the wizards because we've seen it, or some places in like the mountains in the United States where they have secret government vaults that nobody really knows are there, and the kind of stuff that's in there. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds like we're already going into
What
another
else we got?
episode of
Yeah.
government conspiracies. I think we should probably shut it
Shit.
down here. How are we thinking, Leo? Well, I just want to take this moment to welcome you back to the show, to back chilling.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to many more, man. Let's keep this shit grinding.
Time to reflect.
Glad
yeah.
you're back from Ukraine and
Yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah.
made it. Wait, can you just briefly, as we're riding out here, just tell the story of how crazy it was getting into Ukraine during COVID, like all of the weird shit you had to deal with because of COVID.
Oh man. Yeah, it was not fun. Not fun to travel. I guess.
Well, and into a place that has traditionally operated on a bureaucracy that now is not really functional.
I have had COVID in August, and when I was going to Ukraine in September, I was not able to get vaccinated because you have to wait a certain amount of time after you had it to get the vaccine. So I took a test, and I also had proof that I had COVID. I got proof from the lab. So when I landed on the border, they basically said that we didn't accept these documents and we can't translate them. They have to be like in Russian or something weird like that. And it was a bunch of kids that were working in the airport. It was the most unprofessional type of airport like setting. It was very awkward. People were very rude, the workers there. And I had a breakdown. I mean, I had kind of like a mental breakdown there in the airport. I had an anxiety attack. It was not good. It turns out all I had to do was download this app called Vdoma. Like, It's called In-House. And the app doesn't, it's supposed to, like other countries that you go in, European Union, for example, they develop this app so it actually tracks you. So if a country wants you to get in there and all you can do is stay in your hotel, you get isolated, then they actually track your phone. So you just got to leave your phone in the hotel. You can't take it with you, or else they know that, you're going places. So all those other apps, they work. But here's a Ukrainian app, and this is a country that gets the secondhand shit from the world. This app lets you you need to confirm it through a text message, and it lets you choose an area code for any country in the world. But the only area code that works is a Ukrainian number,
because that's the only place you have service right now.
Well, yeah, it's the only
You
place
need a Ukrainian number.
Yeah, it's the only place the app develops. So I'm just having a meltdown, and I don't know what's going on, and everybody's being rude, and they're not answering my questions. I have to look at they're pointing me to go read some instructions, and I've already been in flight for hours. I'm tired. I'm sleep deprived, I'm on the border. I'm finally made it. I haven't been there in 14 years. I want to see my family. I had 2 relatives that just died this past summer. Like, I am having a meltdown, and nobody is answering my questions or helping until I was in there for maybe 2 hours until finally the line died down and somebody felt sympathetic for me, and I finally started having some workers coming up to me and being like actually helpful. Like, what's going on? They were like, I'm for real having a meltdown here. Like, any other airport in the world, in the modern world, they would be like, are you okay? Would you like some water? They would go up to you and be concerned. They would probably bring in the medical personnel and like offer you assistance. But no, Ukrainian airport is like...
They come over 2 hours later and they're like, you haven't left yet?
If anything, I would have looked like a person that was trying to either hurt somebody or blow the place up. I mean, there would have been something. There was literally nothing. They just left me. And finally, slowly over time, with my just muddy mind, I figured things out. I downloaded the app. I had to call my aunt, had the confirmation delivered to her number.
Wow.
So that I could enter it in my phone. And once I had the app downloaded, and I basically just showed that, I was in the app. So all it was is a 2-minute procedure to get the app. My mom was allowed out of the airport because she was vaccinated, and she went and bought the phone card.
Like a burner phone.
No,
a SIM card.
The SIM card, yeah.
Oh, Ukrainian SIM, yeah.
Ukrainian SIM that I could have put in my phone and used.
Yeah.
That's smart. But it didn't work. The SIM card didn't work. It was, it was broken. Like I said, Ukraine is the second hand of the world. Yeah.
She went down to the local St. Vincent de Paul, tried to get a Goodwill-ass SIM card.
This is an airport, dude. A modern-ass airport. Bought a SIM card for like $40 or $20, I think it cost.
Holy shit.
No, it was like $40. It was... No, hang on. No, it was $20, yeah. It was still pricey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Ukraine?
Didn't work. Whole story. Finally, it literally installed this app that doesn't do anything. The app doesn't track you. It has all the everything. It says that all the options that it's meant to do are turned off. So like all of your options that like, track me, off. And it has like 3 options.
And they're all default turned off.
Yeah.
They're like, soon we're going to have the updates that allow these to be turned on.
Yeah, but for now you still have to download it.
Maybe, exactly.
Otherwise you're getting deported now.
Yeah.
So
dumb.
We finally get in. And the worst thing is, to get out, now we have to do another COVID test. So we did the COVID test. But we literally got out the day before they changed the quarantine code to like yellow or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And so we could have been, or I could have been stuck there because I didn't have a vaccine. But
you'd be there right now.
Mm-hmm. Shit. I could have been. I contemplated that idea, but yeah, it sucks. Traveling sucks. I guess, the vaccine thing, who gives a shit if you're planning on travel? It's one of those things that now lets you travel. So yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't stay in the country you're in, or you get the vaccine.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil.
It's because
But
Well.
the U.S. government tracks you with the vaccines, man.
Don't even get me started on that, dude. I've been talking to my friend Ava from Switzerland, and they've been tracking so hard. She isn't vaccinated, and they just passed a law that she can't do anything. Like, they don't even allow a negative test. She cannot go into bars or clubs or restaurants. Not being vaccinated, you must have a COVID pass, and she does not. So she doesn't do anything. So if I were to go visit her next summer, we couldn't do anything. Because she is not vaccinated and has not had COVID. So I was talking to her and she's like, yeah, so I'm trying to get COVID. I'm like, oh my God, you're insane. Your government is pushing you to get COVID. Like, that's craziness. So don't even talk about like all that crazy COVID pass shit, because that's a reality in Europe. Like, there is going to be a new stratification between the two classes, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated.
I mean,
the most ironic thing is getting in a war-torn country and they won't let you in. They're like, our economy's in the shithole. We can use some of your money. People are really struggling here. But yeah, we have rules here. It's like, what? Yeah, there used to be a time where I could have bribed people.
Yeah.
Like, we're at 2010. I could have bribed an airport worker. Now, they still don't get paid shit, but I can't bribe anybody. Like, in the official government. I mean, I can still, buy a passport, obviously, and things like that. But, yeah. You can still buy whatever. It's just, it's not something that you can do in what's officially a formal sort of institution anymore, which you used to be able to do. I mean, and some you can, but it's, I mean, there are a lot of places people take bribes still, but I guess
definitely in Russia, I've encountered bribes.
I specifically mean not the airport. I guess the bribe would have to be really large.
Well, that's not something you're ever going to have to know, because you didn't get stuck in Ukraine, you lucky fuck. So close, man. I was sure you were going to be there forever.
That was what I was banking on, is I could maybe at least bribe people at the airport.
Yeah, I bet you could. You're an American. You could cut a deal.
Oh, and that American passport, though, that is something that, you show that, it speaks for itself. The world is yours. By the way,
you should have shown that off when they were trying to get you to download the app. You're like, download this, motherfucker.
Yeah. What up?
Most places, Yeah. Not so much with the Russian passport, though. Doesn't get you as many places.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah, it's kind of grimy.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen some Russian passports. That's a different thing. That's like halfway between like a driver's license and an actual passport. It's the weirdest shit.
But I guess they're, trying to take over the world, so...
Yeah, and they're doing a great job of that. Can't even get their passports right.
Still not good. Probably better with the British passport.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Leo. It's been really good to have you. I'm really glad you're back. It's been really good to have another show with you. 2 now, because this has been a fucking fiery second part.
Yeah, it's been fucking nice. Good to see you guys.
Look forward to having you again. Ty, any shout-outs you want to do?
These
say hi, Mom.
taste like snozberries.
Damn, Ty, that weed is going to your head.
I haven't even smoked since like 11. This is all me, man.
Yeah, my question, exactly.
We might have to just bleep out the word weed, like when we edit this.
Oh, no. Oh, Leo,
No.
you didn't hear.
Yeah.
We just did an episode on weed.
Oh, damn.
Oh, it's fire, dude. We looked at promoting. Check out our most recent episode. Or future upcoming episode.
Yeah.
This is an episode me and Tyler are dreaming up and soon will exist. It was dope. We looked at the marijuana legality laws since the 70s in Madison and compared them to like the cities around us.
Can we still just bleep out the word weed just for fun?
Yeah, just when you say it there, yeah, we can.
Cool. All right. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's been what a fantastic time. Just like good times, man. All right, well, do what you got to do. Follow us on. Why do I say this wrong? Like us on Facebook. I don't know. Do that Facebook thing, and then also go to that YouTube thing, and you can follow us there too. Check all our episodes on YouTube. We're still up on Spotify. Check all our shit. Check season 1. Check season 2. Season 2, motherfuckers. No Bob's allowed. Yeah.
Season 3 coming soon.
Uh-oh. Tyler's releasing a solo season. Okay, let's not.
No, we're just going through the time.
Don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, stay tuned.
Keep it grimy.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah, as fuck.